You know, the '87 Canada Cup was sort of a passing of the torch from one great one to another. Wayne Gretzky and Lemieux at the best of their powers. Russia had a really good team that year. In the final, they lost the first game but won the next two games by identical 6-5 scores. Of course, Mario scored a big goal at Cops in game three. 6-5 end in play. Now, Team Canada wanted a comeback at that championship event, and maybe that inspired Mario Lemieux and the Pittsburgh Penguins that year in the Stanley Cup playoffs in '91, because Pittsburgh came almost close to being eliminated. They were up against it against New Jersey, Game 6 in New Jersey's home ice. They were behind 3-2, but Mario pulled it out. Very good playoffs. Edmonton was defending champion, but Mario with his 44 points made a big difference. Now, this was an interesting postseason. There was a lot of parity. This was the first playoffs in a number of years there were no sweeps. I think the last time there was no sweeps was 1973. Now, this series of games began on April 3rd, 91, following the 91 campaign. 16 teams qualified from the top four teams in the four division, which was obviously not a best of five anymore, but a best of seven, with reseeding after the division finals. The conference champions played a best of seven series for the Stanley Cup. Now, this was the first of the 25 consecutive years in which the Red Wings qualified for the Stanley Cup playoffs until their streak ended in 2017. Now, their streak is tied for the third longest in NHL history, and while it was running, it was the longest active playoff appearance streak in the four major American professional sports. Now, compare this to the early 80s, where Detroit was having a hard time even reaching 25-30 wins, of course, until Demers and Stevie Eisenman showed up. Now, the finals concluded on May 25th with the Penguins winning the Stanley Cup for the first time in its history, defeating the Minnesota North Stars, that old pest from the early 80s, in the final series to 4-2. Pittsburgh forward Lemieux was awarded Conn Smythe as MVP. Now, in the Prince of Wales Conference, Boston, Montreal, Buffalo, Hartford, Patrick Division, Pittsburgh, New York, Washington, New Jersey, Nickel Aarons, Campbell Conference, Chicago, St. Louis, Detroit, Minnesota, and the Smythe, LA, Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver. Now, in division semifinals, the fourth seeded team in each division played against a division winner from their division. The other series matched the second and third place teams from the divisions. Now, in each round, teams competed in a best of seven series following a 2-2-1-1-1 format, which means home team first two contests, then on the road, and the home ice advantage was awarded to the squad that had a better regular season record and played at home for games 1 and 2, and games 5 and 7 if necessary. The other team then played at home for games 3 and 4. Now, in the first round, Boston won 4-2 over Hartford after winning the last two contests. Series was tied 2-2. And a very interesting series, which a lot of people felt was a preamble to the 93 title run. Montreal outscored, technically, Buffalo in 6 games. The big contests, of course, were Montreal won Game 5 at home against a very balanced Buffalo team. In that game, of course, Russ Courtnall had the big score. Andrew Chuck scored at 3 minutes left to send it overtime, but again, Courtnall played a difference. Now, here it got interesting. Pittsburgh, New Jersey won 7 games. New Jersey won the first contest 3-1, with Pittsburgh winning at home in Game 2, 5-4. Pittsburgh won 4-3 New Jersey, but from then on, New Jersey put the scare into Pittsburgh, winning 4-1 to tie to 2-2, winning 4-2 on the road, and a very, very rough game, Game 6 for Pittsburgh. They had a big lead, unfortunately, 4-1 in the second, but New Jersey came back and almost won it at home. And of course, 4-0 shutout in Game 7. Now, Rangers, Washington. Washington won the series 4-2. Chicago and Minnesota. Minnesota, of course, the underdog. Big victory in that series was a 4-3 road win at Chicago Stadium. Now, in the last series of the first round, St. Louis got past the determined Detroit team The Detroit won the first game in St. Louis and were leading 3-1 until St. Louis won 6-1, 3-0, and 3-2. So that was a rough goal for the Red Wings. Now, the LA Vancouver series, the Kings won 4-2 on the backs of some really strong play. Vancouver won game 1 6-5, lost 3-2 in overtime game 2, but won 2-1 at Pacific Coliseum. But for then on, Kings 6-1, 7-4, and 4-1. Now in this, one of the most interesting series of the whole playoffs, Edmonton played Calgary. They were tied 1-1 after the first 2 contests, with Edmonton winning games 4 and 5 at Northlands. However, Calgary did the big comeback, winning 5-3 at the Saddledome, then winning 2-1 in overtime. That was a really good game at Northlands. But back in the Saddledome, the Calgary curse continued with Edmonton winning 5-4. And of all people, the man that couldn't really speak English and couldn't really speak whatever home country language he did, Essatikan, and had to win in overtime. Now, in the Prince of Wales conference finals, Montreal came with a whisper of advancing. He won game 2 at the Boston Garden 4-3, and then tied it up in game 4. He went back to Boston. Boston won 4-1, and with Boston giving him a chance to knock off the Habs, Montreal won 3-2 in overtime for the second OT victory of the series. But Boston wrapped it up in game 7, a very controversial contest because the third period goal by Cam Neely were said by many to be they shouldn't have counted, but Cam Neely was a big money player. Pittsburgh against Washington. This was all Pittsburgh. They did lose the game 4-2, but then won 7-6 in overtime. That was a freaky game, ladies and gentlemen. Then Pittsburgh won at the Capitol Center 3-1. Then they won back at the Civic Arena 4-1 in game 5. Now, in the St. Louis-Minnesota series, won 6 big games. Minnesota won the opener 2-1. Won both games at home to lead 3-1, but St. Louis came back for 4-2 victory. And then Minnesota was nipped St. Louis 3-2 on Bobby Smith's late goal in the third period. And ladies and gentlemen, Kings against Oilers. Edmonton did not knock off Gretzky in the series. The LA, this was a series that went four games in overtime. LA won the first game at home 4-3, with Edmonton winning a double overtime in game 2. And in game 3, Edmonton won 4-3 in double overtime at Northlands. Edmonton then won again 4-2 2 days later. Kings won at home 5-2, and in a kind of a shocking upset, Edmonton knocked off Gretzky 4-3 in the April 28th contest, the 4th overtime match. And again, Edmonton won 3 overtime games to take it. So you're saying to yourself, it looks like Edmonton's going to make the final. Wrong. In the Pittsburgh-Boston series, Prince of Wales Conference Final, probably one of the best played series nobody talks about anymore. Boston won the first 2 games of the series at the Garden, 6-3 and 5-4 in overtime, but the Penguins at home rebounded, winning 4-1. They clobbered Boston in game 5, 7-2, and then won 5-3 in game 6 to take it all. Now, the Edmonton-Minnesota series was a major upset. The second playoff series between these two teams, they won the Edmonton en route to the Cup, who swept them in the 84 Campbell Conference Final. Now, this was their second consecutive 7 appearance in the conference finals, or Frozen Four. Again, they defeated the previous year Blackhawks in 6 games. Now, they made it to the conference finals. It was their second time. They made it in the last made it in 84 when they were swept by the Oilers in 4 straight. Now, Minnesota won game 1, 3-1. Edmonton rebounded at Northlands for 7-1. But for then on, it was all Minnesota, 7-3, 5-1, and 3-2. Now, in the Stanley Cup Finals, ladies and gentlemen, this was a very interesting series. Minnesota cracked it open with a big road victory, 5-4 in game 1. But the Penguins tied 1-1 after game 2. Now, Minnesota led the series 2-1 with a 3-1 victory. But from then on, it was all Pittsburgh. They outscored the Stars 19-7. They won 5-3 to Met Center. Came back for a 6-4 victory at the Civic Center. And back at Met, it was all Pittsburgh 8-0. Now, Pittsburgh had a very balanced team this year, ladies and gentlemen, offense and defense. Lemieux had 16 goals and 20 assists for 44 points and a very important plus 14. Recchi had 34 points and going 10 goals. Kevin Stevens, an underrated performance, 33 points in 24 contests. And Larry Murphy, strong on offense and defense, 23 points and a plus 17. And of course, Tom Barrasso had an outstanding series, going 12 and 7. Now, the 8-0 victory is not really a classic game, but this game was pretty well done after the first period. Samuelson, Lemieux, and Joe Mullen scored in the first. 2 in the power play, 1 in the shorthand. Bob Airey, Francis, and Mullen in the second. And of course, Jim Pack, who had was an unknown player even 3 months ago, scored in the third. And of course, Larry Murphy is fifth. So Samuelson, that went over well. He had the Stanley Cup winning goal, one of the most hated players in NHL history. Now, what did this mean for the NHL for Mario Lemieux to win the association? Well, it's like this. You had Michael Jordan come in after Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Mario, like I said, the Eastern Canadian NHL fans came back. I think as much as Gretzky did for West Coast hockey, Mario did for East Coast and Quebec and East Coast U.S. hockey. People got more and more into hockey because Mario was a substitute for the Montreal Canadiens' Guy Lafleur. We all know that. And he's the best francophone player never to play for the Montreal Canadiens. Denis Savard's a close second. So that's just my basic opinion. He would never have played in Montreal because, like one of my friends said, I think he'd be better off with the Nordiques. Lemieux came across as a Nordiques kind of that, lunch pail, QMH, JHL teams like Pittsburgh, Philadelphia Rangers. So, anyway, a very interesting playoff, very exciting. Most of the games are on YouTube, and of course, Bob Cole, oh baby, Lemieux, oh baby. By the way, that's not a fake when he says "oh baby" and the hand goes up in triumph. That's not a substitute. That's really how it happened. How did Bob Cole know he was going to go up, But this was Jagger, or we call him Mario Jr. This was a talented team. Even that prick Brian Trottier who tried to cripple Bob Gainey in '84, he won another cup. We weren't really happy about that. I'm a Aboriginal person, and the first law of Mi'kmaq culture, you don't attack Bob Gainey behind the net with a cross check for no fucking reason. So I'm not gonna leave him go. It's 40 years. Fuck it. Brian Trottier, if I'll say him to my face, what the fuck you doing trying to cripple the Montreal Canadiens? You won the game. Fuck off. Anyway, so the way it goes. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like we're doing with our hockey podcast, especially the vintage 80s and 90s stuff, let us know and like, comment, subscribe, or share.